I have to come down here today and risk my life to vote.
Voting rights advocates like to say that our electoral system is rickety at best, and it is not built to withstand stress. It's not built to withstand the stress of a pandemic that forced states to massively increase absentee balloting in a heartbeat, a process that the states that do vote by mail well took years to do. It's not built to withstand the the political pressure of a very divisive election with President Trump and Republicans questioning the security and integrity of the system. And yet, those stresses are all upon us this year. And election officials know that they have to do everything in their power to prevent what happened in Georgia on Tuesday from happening again on November 3rd.
I've already been in line for 3 hours.
Georgia and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, which is still counting ballots, 11 days after its election, are not good signs about whether we're ready for this nationwide.
I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like maybe it's intentional that it's so difficult to vote in general. It's very frustrating.
Raffensperger came into office pledging to be a nonpartisan actor, worked with voting rights advocates, actually defied Republican leadership in the state by mailing those absentee ballot requests out to everybody. The House Speaker, a Republican, was angry about that. And I think there's some question about whether the Republicans are going to introduce legislation this year to make sure that he can't do that in the fall, as is happening in Iowa right now. There's also the fact that a lot of the problems were actually the work of local election officials.
We opened up an investigation last week, and we'll continue to really research what happened there and what do we need to do to get ready for our runoff that we'll have in 60 days and make sure that we're ready for the November election.
The state law does not allow him to go in and manage the elections locally. On the other hand, the system is not working. And so the advocates say, shouldn't it be your responsibility to do something about that? If it's not working, go to the legislature and tell them it's not working. Let's change those laws. Let's get more money for local governments to administer these elections. Let's have more training. Let's not introduce a new machine system for the first time during a pandemic, although in fairness, that was not predicted. There are two views of whether this was intentional voter suppression, and I think the evidence is gray, because certainly the counties where the problems were the worst are the counties with the largest minority populations, but they're also the largest counties in the state. And the problems, if you break it down by precinct, don't only sort of correlate with minority population. There were affluent, largely white precincts in North Fulton County that had 2, 3, 4 hour waits on Tuesday as well.
But it is also prelude to what could happen in November.
As soon as Georgia happened and it was sort of all eyes on this debacle unfolding, you had a couple of different reactions. You had President Trump saying, see, absentee balloting is a mess. Everybody should vote in person. All precincts should be open. Absentee balloting is ripe for fraud. You had Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee, saying, I think that Donald Trump is going to try to steal this election, and we have to do everything in our power to prevent that. If you didn't have voting by mail in this election, the lines would have been, 4 times longer. It would have been even more insane. And so his argument doesn't really hold water, like just logically. And, what Biden says about whether the president's trying to steal this election it's an interesting point, because President Trump has said very clearly that he thinks that if everybody's allowed to vote, he'll lose and Republicans will lose. And, some people have argued that explains why he's advocating for restricting the ways in which people can vote. On the other hand, what Biden is saying has a potential to further undermine confidence in the elections and make people on all sides of the political spectrum wonder whether their vote's going to count.